Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. Today is going to be our second installation of our quarterly series, Wayne's Wanderlist. So if you remember last time, we talked about my recent trip to Paris and how that inspires me as a host. And today we're going to visit my trip to Nepal and India. Over the holidays, mid-December to early January, I took an 18-day trip and explored just so many aspects of those two amazing countries. And I'm going to share some stories with you today, and again share with you how that particular travel inspires me as a host. Before we get started, as I was setting up for today's episode, the notification on my phone went off, Instagram notification, that the Dolce & Gabbana Alta Sartoria show was starting live. So as I was setting this up today, I was watching Dolce & Gabbana on my phone, and I just thought it was kind of ironic. If you remember, the reason for the trip to Paris was to go to the Dolce & Gabbana exhibit, From the Heart to the Hands, and what an impact that had on me. So I thought, you know, probably that's a little bit of good luck for today's episode. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Let's get started. So my first stop on the trip was Delhi in northern India. So basically, you know, did the Golden Triangle, so Delhi, Jaipur, and Agra. But while in Delhi, of course, so many incredible things to see. India in general inspires me because of the handcrafts, the textiles, all the visual elements that appeal to me so much. But probably one of the high points for me in Delhi was I did a cooking class. So I'm gonna share a few things that inspired me from that class that I brought home with me, and then a few other things that I picked up along the way. First and foremost, you might remember this jacket. I've only worn it twice. If you saw my birthday episode, I was wearing this jacket for my birthday party. And if you saw the Dolce & Gabbana episode where we revisited the exhibit in Paris, I wore this jacket then. So I've only worn it twice, but it's kind of like my hosting jacket. It's cashmere, and it was one of the first things I bought in Delhi on that trip. Another thing that I'm super proud of from that experience was the bedspread and pillows that I have in my guest bedroom. The bedspread is amazing, beautiful cotton cutwork that's finished with all kinds of hand detailing. The entire bedspread is hand stitched. So I love having that for my guests. I think it makes the guest room extra special. And as you guys know, I like to mix cultures. So I've got Indian and Mexican combined in my guest room space. The pillows on the bed are also from India, but it really excites me to share those elements with my guests because, as we've always talked about, I like to welcome people into my world and make them feel the kind of cultural influence that my home has. So let's get back to Delhi. First of all, I have to give a shout out to JD at Food Tours Delhi. I found him on Get Your Guide, so that's how I found the cooking class. JD welcomed me into his home. I got to meet his parents. I got to hear the stories about the influence that his grandparents had on him in cooking. JD and his family are Sikhs, and I had never really spent time with Sikhs, so I got to learn a lot about their religion and their culture, so that made the experience really exciting. So one of the main things I took away from that cooking class was the very traditional Indian tin of spices called the Dabba Masala. So the actual tin is the Dabba Masala. So in the Dabba Masala, there's always an assortment of spices. And many of the spices are very consistent, but I learned this talking to JD. Sometimes people have different spices depending on their tastes and their preferences. So in my Dabba Masala, I have typical chili powder. I've got cardamom, I've got coriander, I've got cinnamon, I've got cumin seed, I've got black pepper, and I've got garam masala. So these are the spices that I chose to have in mine. Again, sometimes there is some variation, but after that class, these are the particular ones that I actually purchased in Delhi. I purchased the spices in Delhi. I actually purchased the tin in Jaipur. So that's part of another story, but that was a big takeaway for me. I also had a custom blend of chai masala tea made, and I love this. Obviously, it didn't come home in the mason jar, but after I got it home, I put it in the mason jar. But this is wonderful, so refreshing. I love having this to offer my guests. This is Casio cinnamon. I brought that from Delhi as well. Casio cinnamon is the very traditional cinnamon that you'll find in India. It's got a stronger, more robust flavor compared to the cinnamon that we're used to in the States, and it's a natural complement to Indian cooking, so that came with me from Delhi. And then I also just picked up a couple of these. They're masala, they're kind of masala spice blends. One's for chicken, one is a tandoori chicken masala. So I thought it would be nice to have some spices that are already combined. And since I was there and they were available, I decided to bring those home with me. Before we move on, I also wanted to say I was invited to do an exhibition of some of my photography from this trip. So I'm going to be sharing a few of those photos as we talk about some of the things that I brought back with me. But I'm going to share a few of those, and I'm also going to share just a couple of my favorite photos so you kind of get the flavor for what that trip was like. This is one of my favorite photos. People talk about seeing cows when you're in India. Well, I'm here to verify it's true. They're everywhere. Especially you see them in the roundabouts, you see them walking down the streets. When I was driving on the highway between Delhi and Jaipur, we saw no less than a dozen cows along the way. So they are around, it's not a myth. And I love this picture and wanted to share that. Also, one of my favorite experiences in Delhi was the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial. And you guys are gonna see, I love people pictures. I love taking pictures of people. And so this photo was at the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial, and it was one of the groundskeepers that was raking the grass. And this is actually one of the photos from my photo exhibition. So I wanted to share those few things. Let's move on to Jaipur. Jaipur was an amazing experience, and I'm gonna start right off the bat with one of my favorite elements about my time that was there. So I'm sure you're familiar with henna, when people get henna, which is basically a stain on the skin that they create designs with. So I decided to do henna in Jaipur, and the woman was very excited because I wanted to do the entire top of my head. And so we did the henna, and then that evening we went to one of the markets where I actually purchased the spice tin, and it was so fun walking around the streets of Jaipur with this henna stain on my head, because I think it was something that was a little unusual. People weren't used to seeing henna in that location. The woman that did it, turns out she's a very famous henna artist, and she was super excited because she said she had told me she's only done like 3 heads before, so it was really fun for her. So Jaipur, known for several things. Jaipur is known for textiles. It's also known for pottery. So a few of the things that I picked up there that I brought home were, these are, it's called blue pottery. If you remember from our amuse bouche episode, I used these. They're technically coasters, but I used these to present the salmon and caviar amuse bouche that I had done. So these are from Jaipur, and again, the pottery style, blue pottery, is unique to Jaipur. So those came home from there. All these fabrics came from Jaipur. If you remember our home fragrance episode, you'll recognize this fabric. This is one of the fabrics I used on top of the scent jar. So this was from Jaipur as well. You know I love textiles. So I just bought an assortment of textiles while I was there. I've made fragrance sachets out of some of these, and I just like having textiles because you never know when you're going to want to make something, whether it be a napkin or, you know, different things that you can use. By the way, I went to the studio where the artisans were actually block printing the fabrics. So it was amazing to be able to see the process and to be able to see exactly what goes into creating textiles like this, which makes you appreciate them even more. The other thing I got in Jaipur were these placemats. Again, block printed and stitched. And what I love about these is they are reversible. So you've got this really great fabric, kind of this printed fabric, a little more organic on one side and then a little bit more geometric. This reminds me of like an ikat print. I think of this as kind of ikat, but I love these. And again, those came from Jaipur as well. So let's move on to our next stop, which is Agra. Of course, everybody knows Agra as the location of the Taj Mahal. And I have to say, the Taj Mahal is one of those things that until you see it, you have no idea how magnificent it truly is. So let's just call that a bucket list item for me. The trip was a bucket list, but seeing the Taj Mahal was really incredible. There's another photo that I took that was part of the exhibit that I did, and it's actually a young gypsy girl in a yellow dress. And it's one of those things, and I know people that travel with me sometimes kind of laugh at me because I see these situations developing and I'll just hang back with my phone and wait for the moment so I can capture, you know, the vision of what I can see in the photo. But the picture of this girl was part of my exhibit as well. And then there's one more photo of this Indian woman walking in a sari in front of the Taj Mahal. And that was another one of those moments where, you know, I kind of saw her coming and I just stepped back. And of course, you know, you snap 40 pictures to get the one, but I was really happy that I did that. I was very proud of these pictures. But in Agra, I got these napkins. And so there are multiple places in India that produce textiles, and each area has a different type of textile. So these are cotton printed napkins. I love them. You've seen them in my videos already. They're in my intro video, the intro for the Consummate Host, so you've seen them there. But I love the colors. Obviously, you know me, I'm not afraid of color. So I was really happy to bring these home with me. So those came from Agra. And then our next stop is a small town called Khajuraho. And what was awesome about Khajuraho is I had been in these centers like Delhi, Jaipur, and Agra, which are major kind of metropolitan areas in India, very high concentration of population, very crowded. Oh, let me take a moment to talk about traffic in India. Brace yourself. It's something that I had never experienced before. You hear about it, but until you experience it, it's just the intensity of driving, and the thing that makes it just incredible is horn honking all the time. So our guide and our drivers explained to us that Indian drivers use honking as a form of communication. So in the US, when we hear honking, it's for a reason. It's because there's a problem, somebody wants you to get out of the way, it's all of that. But in India, it's communication. So our guide explained to us that Indian drivers are very forward-looking. They're not as in tune with surrounding areas like side view mirrors or rear view mirror. So the honking is to let people know that people are going around. So anyway, when you go to India, just be ready for that. But the beauty of the time there was Khajuraho is a town of about 10,000 people, and it was so nice to be in a calm environment compared to these metropolitan areas. And the photo from my exhibit from Khajuraho is one of my favorites. We got up super early so that we could see the sunrise at this temple complex, and just happened to catch this moment of a woman walking amongst the temples with the sun rising. So I wanted to share that. And from there, we're going to move on to Varanasi. Varanasi is considered to be one of the most sacred cities in India. So of course, the Ganges River flows through Varanasi. And while I was there, went to the most amazing ceremony I have ever witnessed. It was on the banks of the Ganges River, and it's called Ganga Aarti. And I learned after I was there, this ceremony goes on every single night, 365 days of the year, rain or shine. So remember, Hindu is the most prominent religion in India. So Hindus travel from all over the country to come witness this ceremony. And the night that we were there was approximately 30,000 people sitting on the banks of the river, sitting on the banks, sitting in boats, sitting in sidewalks that kind of turn into stands, observing this ceremony. And there was an energy in the experience that I will never forget. So while I was in Varanasi, the next day, we were very fortunate to go out and we got to see the sunrise from a boat on the Ganges River. So that was incredibly memorable to me. And then after that, we walked some of the areas right along the river, kind of some smaller neighborhoods where there was very small shops with very specific select items. And that's where I picked up these two essential oils. This is sandalwood and this is Shiva flower essential oils. If you remember from my birthday episode, the Shiva flower oil is what I use to make the bath salts for all the guests at my birthday. So all of my guests received a fond farewell bag with bath salts made out of the Shiva flower oil that I brought from Varanasi. And then I also picked up some sandalwood incense. I love burning incense. In moderation, but I do like the way it makes the house smell. So I got incense in Varanasi that I brought home. And then I love this little figure. This is definitely a tourist item because you see them everywhere, but I just loved this, this figure of Mahatma Gandhi. So that also came from Varanasi. So from there, the last stop on the trip was Kathmandu and Nepal. So let's go there. One of the things I enjoyed so much about this trip was being able to experience the contrast between India and Nepal. And of course, visually, they're very different because if you think, the primary religion in India is Hindu and the primary religion in Nepal is Buddhist. And so the kind of visual references to those religions are very different. The temples are different, the iconography is different, so it was wonderful to experience both of those things. So my first day in Kathmandu, one of the places we went was called the Monkey Temple, and they called it the Monkey Temple because it was up on the kind of top of this really high mountain, and it was inundated with a monkey population. So it was so interesting to see these monkeys everywhere. Some of the visuals were incredible. The view of the city was amazing. One of the things that had a huge impression on me were the prayer wheels. So most of the Buddhist temples have, they're surrounded by some sort of a kind of a fence that's got all of these prayer wheels. So people will circle them and spin the prayer wheels. But then they have these individual chambers that have giant prayer wheels in them. And to see the scale of them, of these just gorgeous red wheels turning, was amazing. So that had a big impression on me. So a few of the things that I picked up when I was in Kathmandu, I went to this incredible outdoor market. You're gonna see one of the pictures that was from my exhibit from Kathmandu. As I was walking towards this market, I saw this woman coming. And again, as I mentioned, I love taking people pictures. So just got my phone out, and as I was walking forward and she passed by, I snapped as many pictures as I could. I'm so happy to be sharing this photo with you because it had such an impression on me. So anyway, at this market, this outdoor market, I bought this carved yak that's covered in beads. So yaks are prominent in Nepal. In fact, yak wool is a big part of Nepal industry. So you can find woolen things made out of yak wool. But I fell in love with this little yak that's covered in all of this ornamentation. He also sits in my guest room. So when my guests are staying with me, he's part of their welcome. So I'm happy to have him here. And then a few of the other things that I got, Nepal produces these amazing papers called Lakti papers, and they come from the Lakti bush. And so they actually make the paper out of out of the bark, and then they hand block print all the designs. So I only have these few scraps to kind of show you. They came in much larger sheets. All the gifts that I brought back to give to friends and family all got wrapped in the Lochte paper. And so this is what I've got left, but you know, I don't throw anything away. So we're gonna hang on to that because I'm sure there'll be a use for it. This is a card that's also made out of the same paper. I love these. I love thank you cards from travel because I think it really makes people feel like you appreciate them because you're sharing something that was part of an experience that you had. Not only are you saying thank you for something, but you're sharing a part of, you know, kind of your own culture and experience. So I brought these cards, and then I love this. This is a pop-up card, and it is the Himalayan mountains. And so probably for me, maybe the biggest thrill in Kathmandu or in Nepal was on the flight returning back to India before coming home, we were able to see Mount Everest. And you know, just to be able to say that you've seen Mount Everest is, it's really monumental and probably another bucket list item. So anyway, I love this pop-up card. Another one of my highlights from my time in Kathmandu was another cooking class. So as you guys have come to learn, I love to do cooking classes when I travel. You know, I was just in Oaxaca in May. I went specifically to take a mole cooking class. I mentioned the class that I did in Delhi. And so when I was in Kathmandu, I was very unfamiliar with Nepali food and Nepali cooking. And it was such a great experience. Another thing I love about doing cooking classes when you travel is you always meet such interesting people. So there was a couple from Kazakhstan in my cooking class in Kathmandu. There was a couple from Austria, and there was a girl from India. So it was just, you know, you get this cultural mix of people that are all learning something new, and it makes the experience even more special. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Once again, I hope a few of my stories about travel adventure and the way I like to let travel inspire me as a person, as a human, as a host, I hope that too has inspired you. Today's manifesto moment is, we believe travel is the ultimate muse, inspiring ideas, flavors, and beauty. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Like it.